Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 2. Season 1 in 2021 consisted of 92 episodes, and the stories have inspired a vast cross-section of people. The feedback that Alan and Jerry received daily was compelling and inspires us to bring so much more to you in 2022. Thank you to those that joined us in Season 1. We continue to explore the journeys of Canadians doing inspiring things.
And welcome to another edition of Gale Force Winds, right back here at the East End of St. John's. I'm Alan Dale. With me as always, my good buddy Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
Well, again, here we are, Alan.
Yeah.
What I love about what this little Gale Force Winds thing is, it's bringing people that I've known for a long time together, like-minded individuals. This individual here, I'm going to say it right off the bat, when I was in school, in university in Munn, we were going to his house on Neptune Road, and I wanted to go. I was a maverick. No, I'm gonna go off on my own tangent. This guy pulled me back, and we became really good friends. Him, Wayne Howlett, and a few others. Anyway, long story short, he taught me very quickly that the importance of working together. Right. And I've taken that with me for a long time, and that I gotta say publicly, thank you for that.
Wow. Well, what a great place to start.
Yeah.
And without further ado, Richard, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Richard Kennedy, and I'm the broker of Hanlon Realty, which is it is the largest independent real estate agent in Atlantic Canada.
Amazing.
I come from Holyrood, grew up in Holyrood, great childhood there, I guess, had the regular things with school and run around kids playing ball and all that stuff. And then, when I was 13 years old, lived with my mom and obviously my siblings. I had two brothers and a sister, so it's four of us. And when I was 13, my dad actually died, and that put us in a little bit of a different place. So we grew up out there, and then we ended up being a little bit more resourceful with a single mother who raised us and did a very good job, I might add, because all of my siblings did very well for themselves. Then went to university, met Jerry and a few more good friends, came out of university and went to work. Yeah, so.
Tell me about Mom and the siblings.
Very strong woman, my mother, actually. Yeah. I mean, Jerry had a very similar situation, actually, to what I had.
Yeah.
And I think when we first met, that resonated with us, because both of us had lost our fathers at a very young age. Yeah. But it was amazing. I was thinking about it, and I was 13 years old when my dad died, and it was amazing the impact that he had for 13 years on what I would do the rest of my life.
Right.
It was crazy. And it's only later in life you actually understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, then I didn't understand it. When we were growing up, we were like cutting wood and making sure that everything was done around the house. And it's so funny. I was thinking about it. Here we were, a young family. I guess my brother was 16 years old and I was younger, 3 years apart, and my other brother was 3 years younger than that, and my sister was 2 years younger than him. And here we were in 1,100 square foot house, 4 kids, and we had an open basement downstairs. And Alan, I can't tell you how we did it at that age, because I know what my kids are like.
Yeah.
We built that basement ourselves.
Is that right?
Yeah, myself and my brother, and my other brother, not my sister, she was too young, but myself and my 2 brothers, and we had little help from anybody.
Amazing.
To do that. And I mean, we did the basement, and we created from 1,100, 2,200 square foot house.
Go on.
It was crazy. I look at my kids, I go, well, I'd never get my kids to do that. They can't drive a nail straight. But we probably couldn't either. No.
That must have created quite a bond between you and your brothers.
Yeah. We, I remember we did have help from our uncle, actually, on one thing. We put a suspended ceiling in it, and we didn't really know how to level the ceiling. Yeah. Because we had obviously no experience in construction. So he came in and helped us, and we used my dad's old level, grading level, and that's how we figured out. Like, we'd put a line to the ceiling, and we'd mark it out, so you set the level up in the middle,
Yeah.
put your marks all around the ceiling, and then put your tracks on and then run from there. So, outside of that, we pretty much did it all ourselves, but it's so funny because that lesson of even how to do that in grading has followed me on many different aspects of my life.
Is that right?
In terms of, you don't know how to do it, but you can figure it out. All you need is someone just to show you a little bit more, so
Right.
you know a little bit more than what you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I just want to touch on that a little bit, because when you and I met, we are not that far removed from the loss of our dads, like 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
And the loss, you brought back a lot of memories, a lot of painful memories, but a lot of good ones as well. You're right. I mean, you learn, don't you? You see a mother who's just so strong, but then, you know what, Alan? And I met, your dad is amazing. You were lucky enough to have him as long as you did.
Yeah.
But we kind of had that kind of navigate through life on your own kind of thing, right? And that's, I guess, what I admire so much about you, Richard.
Well, we were, I guess, I look at it now and I go, we were sort of forced to grow up faster.
Right.
We had a childhood, don't get me wrong. I mean, we weren't going around, as slaves or anything.
Yeah.
But we had chores to do. And, our mother was working, not a big job. She wasn't, the director of a company. She was working in a convenience store in the community. I mean, she wasn't making a lot of money, so she was doing minimum wage, I guess, most of her life. And, I always look at that, and you and I have talked about it before. I go, man, how the hell did you do it?
How do you raise 4 kids? Convenience store. I mean, and just the challenges, right?
Well, you're right, Alan. And you know what? Let's be frank. We were probably arseholes in many ways, right? I know I was, because you're too young to understand what your mom was going through, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But it like I said, even at 13 years, my dad died when I was 13 years old. But the things that he'd done in those 13 years, I carried them. I'm sure I carried a lot of those experiences with me.
Yeah.
And they made me look and think at stuff differently. I mean,
Right.
I always tell the story, just quickly tell the story about my dad. And he put an extension on our house. So he was an engineer, civil engineer. So he put an extension on our house. And they're in water and sewer, so the concrete pipes.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
So he takes this concrete pipe, and I remember, I'm thinking, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, maybe, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, she puts the pipe down, there's a roof that comes out, and it has to be supported by a beam.
Yeah.
Which later on in my life, and where I ended up, I mean, structural
You understand
engineering, I understand it all now.
Yeah.
But back then, man, I was like really young, so he got this 8-inch pipe, so we fill up with cement. So it was myself and my buddy were there, and I wasn't old, I was young. So I was with a shovel mixing cement on a piece of plywood. So we'd be mixing together and give it to him, he'd put it in the thing, you got all the cement put in. Then he takes this 4-inch pipe and puts it on top of it. Now, when you go up top, it's like the roof line comes out like this.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this much of a gap that the pipe is exposed to,
Right.
that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Nothing, right?
Yeah.
So he says, Richard, run in and get me one of the teacups out of the cupboard. And I go, a teacup? Okay, so I run in and I said, Mom, Dad wants a teacup. She hauls down a china cup, right? She said, what do you want, a mug? He said a teacup, I don't know. So there's this fine china.
Right.
So myself and my buddy are mixing up the cement and we're putting in his gallon bucket and he's up on the ladder. And my friend was actually a couple of years older than me, so he used to climb up on the ladder and he'd hand him the bucket. And my father had the bucket like this, and he'd put the teacup in it, and he'd pour it in. This thing was 10 feet long, 4 inches wide. And
Yeah.
I was sitting down at the bottom, I was looking up and going, man, that's going to take forever.
Yeah.
That'll never happen.
Yeah.
But, and then if I relate that to my later life, I say the lessons I learned,
Yeah.
the persistence
Right.
of consistently doing something
Right.
resulted in a finished product.
Right.
And it was years later on in my life that I actually, understood it that way.
Right. Yeah.
But he didn't. He knew he had to do that.
Yeah.
If I was going to make this thing support this, I need to fill that with concrete. How can I do it?
A little bit at a time,
A
eh?
little bit at a time, man. That was it.
It sounds to me what you're describing there is that you had to get a lot of perspective early when you were young.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We got a lot of perspective.
yeah.
Well, I mean, not to bring too much loss into this, but you did lose one of your siblings
Yeah,
as well. Let's just,
33 years old.
you know, I want to bring that up because let's just talk about him. I met all of your family and wonderful guy. Just briefly touch on that. If you can, I'm
I
sorry
know,
for
I
bringing
can.
up the hard parts, but
This is not an Oprah show, is it?
you can cry.
Anyways, no, he was very dear to all of our family. I mean, when our father died, he was 16 years old. He turned into the second father, and you know, he was the head of the household. There's no
Right.
two ways about it. He was a pilot. He became a pilot. He
Wow.
flew for Lab Air. He was offered jobs to go
Yeah.
fly in Toronto, make big money on Air Canada. He was like, no man, I ain't going. He wasn't that kind of guy, you know.
Right.
He liked Newfoundland. He liked his family. He did actually. What he said is, no offense to anybody who lives in Toronto,
Yep.
but he said, I don't want to raise my kids in Toronto.
Yeah.
He told me that one day, and I said, what do you like? You got this job offer, like they're coming at you, and why don't you just take it? And he said, no man, I don't want to raise my kids in that environment. I want them to grow up here.
Yeah.
And anyways, his kids, you know, fantastic. They turned out great. He had a big impact on those guys and us along the way, helped them out, and
Yeah.
you know, whatever we could, did whatever we could for him.
But
Yeah.
he passed away.
Yeah, he passed away of stomach cancer
Yeah, okay.
at the age of 33.
Yeah.
I can tell you one story.
Sure.
I tell this story a few times, and he loved when I play guitar, because I play guitar, right? So he loved the song "Taxi" by Harry Chapin, and he said to me, he said, "Sing Taxi, sing Taxi." So I said, "Okay, I'll sing Taxi, not a problem." I think I told you the story before.
Yeah.
So I'd be there playing Taxi, and I'd be singing the lyrics.
Yeah.
And he'd be behind me singing, not a note in his body, totally out of key, and I'd be stopping, go, man, will you stop singing? Holy God! I said, you just like, if you want me to sing it, I'll sing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't join in, right?
Right.
And he goes, okay, you do it. I love it when you do it. So, anyways, when he died, I actually played it, and when I played it for years after, I could hear him singing behind me out of key.
Is that right?
Oh, for years. I don't hear it anymore. I guess
Yeah.
time does a lot of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But I can honestly say that for years, when I played that song, I could hear him behind me singing out of key.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is mom still alive?
Mom is still alive. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. She's fantastic. She's in good health.
Yeah.
Living by herself, you know, and
Right.
getting by. I talk to her pretty much every day.
And when the phone rings and mom comes up, you answer.
Yeah. When if it's pretty much the only time. If I'm
Yeah.
in a meeting, you know how it is. You're in a
Yeah.
meeting, somebody's calling, your phone's buzzing. But I mean, from sales point of view, like I always say, you know, that takes you off track.
Yeah.
You don't, you know, if you're in
Yeah.
a thought process, your phone rings and you go, oh, excuse me, I'll answer it, and you answer it.
Yeah.
Then you hang on and go, oh, where was I? What was I doing? But you know, you lose track of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I always say to clients, and I will look at my phone, because if it says mom, I'd say sorry.
Yeah.
There's only one call I'll answer when I'm in the middle of something. That's my mother, so excuse me. And they always go, that's fine, you go ahead. It's true.
Yeah.
But it is the only call I will take.
I hope she's watching. She,
She's a great woman. She's a very
Yeah.
strong woman.
I
Yeah.
bet she is.
Yeah.
Raising 4 youngsters, as they say in Newfoundland. Little house out in Holyrood.
Yeah.
That's fantastic stuff. So, schooling, where'd you go to school?
I went to Roncalli out in Avondale in high school, and then went on to university, did Memorial University, graduated out of there in 1993, graduated. I spent
It's funny how you say that because I'm like you. I was like, I think it was 93.
Yeah.
You know you're getting old when you can't remember when you graduated.
Well, I know I was probably there a lot longer than I should have been.
Yeah.
Because, you
Too
know.
much time at the breezeway? Or?
No, not at all, Alan.
No?
That's not what, you know, my motivation was, I needed to get through, and we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of, you know, anyone throwing money at us left, right, and center. I mean, I used to go home on the weekends, and, you know, I used to look forward to the 3 loaves of bread my mother would give me to go back to town, because we were renting out in town. But what I did, I worked, man, and there was a point, when we were in university, I knew in grade 10 what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to university, I wanted to do business, and I wanted to do a marketing degree. Because I wanted to work with an advertising company. That's where my head was when I was in grade 10.
I remember you telling me that.
I was in grade 10, and then people are like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I go to university. I'll just go out and I'll just float around. Well, I went in, and I knew exactly where I was going to go. But, we had to survive. You had to have the cash flow, and they didn't have poor student night at Sherlock's with 99-cent wings for no reason. There was poor students, and we were poor students. So I said I was going to get a job. So I worked I worked a lot of jobs. Actually, if you talk to my wife and my mother, they go, "Oh my God, how many jobs did you have?" Because when I didn't have a job, I created a job.
Right. Tell me about that.
Well, I'll give you, I guess one example would be we finished up university Christmas time, and I was 21, 22 years old, and our family owned a large tract of land on Salmon Line. And we knew that land because we, as young fellows, myself and my brothers used to go in the woods, and we cut wood and bring it home and cut it up, and we burn it for the winter. So we had this big tract of land that our family owned, so nobody would bother us if we went and started cutting wood on it. And one Christmas, I went, man, I got no money for Christmas. I had an idea. And a buddy of mine lived across the street, and he had a truck, and he was living on, it was Sean Mansfield, actually. He was living on, or working on the Irving boats, and he'd come home, and he'd be off for a track of time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm bored to death, man. Because we would be chatting. I was like, man, I got a great idea. Why don't we take your truck, go to my land, we'll cut some trees, and I'll sell them, and we'll split the money. And he was like, okay, sure, I haven't got nothing to do, we'll go. So we went, and we cut all the Christmas trees, and packed it aboard the truck, and we came back, and I went up to Miller's store at the time. I don't know if it was still there, but it was Miller's store on Pennywell Road, because I lived in the area. And I said, hey, I'm a poor student, and and I want to set up a Christmas tree lot. If it's okay with you, just trying to make some money for Christmas. And they go, oh yeah, man, poor student, go right ahead. You're a student trying to make a living at it. Go ahead, you set up whatever. So I set it up there. I was like, I was standing there, and like cars would go by, and nobody's buying any trees. I was like, man, this is not working. I figured I'd just cut trees and people would just stop and
build it, they will come.
Yeah, it's like, I figured I'd cut the trees and they just say, okay, well, I'll have that one. And I say, that's $25, that's $25, whatever the price was at the time. I think it was like 35, $40 worth charging. Anyway, I wasn't really into the pricing that much to say, oh, well, maybe we should drop the price. So new sign goes up $25. So, and still, there's an odd tree sold. The guy would come in and go, yeah, I'll take that one, $25. And then they try to beat you down. I was like, oh man, they were 35. We're not selling for 25. Like, we're taking the beating on this as it is. So anyways, I had all these trees left, and it was coming up to Christmas time. And it was probably like 6, 7, 8, 10 days or something before Christmas. I was like, dude, this is not working. So I went back to my house, and I got on the phone and started calling everybody I knew. Got a tree? We're selling Christmas trees. Would you like to buy one? They're $35. We got them marked down to $25, and we'll deliver it for free. And they were like, yeah, sure, I don't have a tree. We'll buy one off you. So we sold all the trees, not from the lot. I sold them from the phone.
Right, yeah.
From calling people I knew.
That's awesome.
It's a tree delivery service. It could really fly today.
Yeah, actually, there's a really funny story.
I forgot you did that.
There's a really funny story just on the backside of that, and I'll just tell it to you. So my cousin bought a tree off me, and she's unfortunately dead now too. She died a few years ago. But she bought a tree off me, and she was like, yeah, Richard, I'll buy a tree off you, no problem. So I said, well, I'll deliver it. So I brought it over to deliver it. She calls me back, like, I don't know, December 26th. Yeah. She's like, yeah, I just want to let you know, we're cutting Christmas short this year. I said, why? She said, there's no needles left on the tree.
When'd you cut them, in October?
I said, what do you mean there's no needles left on the tree? She said, well, I had to take it down. The needles are like falling off it, right? Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe that. I said, I'm coming over. So I drive over to her place. I go in, and I go, what the hell? I said, there's your problem right there. She said, what? I said, you put it in sand.
No water.
She put it in a bucket of sand. The bucket filled it up with sand. That was her Christmas tree stand.
That's a great story.
You should have educated her.
Well, what other jobs do you have going through university that stand out to you?
Oh my God, I think... again, it's like there's there was not a lot of work
No.
on the go.
Well, the recession, like
Yeah.
the late 80s, early 90s, was not a good time for coming out of university.
Right.
No, and
Yeah.
even like part-time jobs, like there was very select part-time jobs, and if you didn't get your part-time job, and a lot of times the jobs were because you knew somebody
Right,
or
yeah.
you know, that's how you got into it. But anyways, it was one year. I was like, man, I got to make some money. So see this ad, and it's like, you know, make whatever X number of dollars a month doing sales. So I said, okay, I'm going to call that guy. So I called on the ad, and they said, yeah, come on down, have an interview. So I go down, and what it is door-to-door encyclopedia sales
Right.
for like the summer, and it was straight on commission.
For any of the young people, an encyclopedia was
Yeah.
a written book
Yeah.
that you used to order in bulk.
Yeah,
It was Google in paper form. Yeah.
yeah, Google in paper form, and you had to lift it off the shelf. Anyway, so I said, you know what? Damn it, there's nothing there, so I'm going to go for that.
Yeah.
And they were paying. It was I think the set was $2,100 for the set, so that's what you sold. But the commission rate was 33%, so you made like $700 a set,
Go on.
right? So I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. So they had groups set up. So you had your I guess manager, field manager,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
what they call it. So the field manager, and then he'd have 4 guys. So he'd get in his van, and we'd all go to a community, and we'd stop, and everyone get out, and they'd go, and you'd knock on doors, and you'd try to sell your goods. And they actually had a pretty good training program, because I actually had to do 7 days of training before I went on the road. And they said, this is our system, and this is why these people should buy it. And they were putting out a value proposition
Okay.
on these books.
Right.
And it was so funny because I got it.
Yeah.
Like, I understood what they were doing. They were like, you know what? These people need this. Like,
Right.
they were selling me to sell to you,
Right.
but they need it. And I said, well, why did they need it? You know,
Yeah.
they're not going to look up, you know,
Yeah.
42 volumes or whatever we had at the time. And, or they didn't need it every day, is I guess is my point, because I grew up in a family where if we needed something, we needed it every day. So you had to do it.
Yeah,
You had to
right,
get
yeah.
it done every day.
Yeah.
But anyways, they did sell us on the system, and here's the system, here's the learning system, this is how it all works. And I got it. I got the value. I understood the value position that they were putting out there. So we hit the road. Man, I sold more encyclopedias than anybody.
Go on.
Yeah, I sold 3 sets in my first 2 weeks. And then there was a third week. I probably did another set or so. I can't remember exactly. I know that in the first 2 weeks I made $2,100 as a, you know, in
Yeah.
2 weeks. If you were a university student and
Pretty
someone
good.
pay you $2,100 for 2 weeks work,
Yeah.
now it was work.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You're knocking
I mean,
on
you're
doors.
knocking on doors,
Yeah.
right? It's experience that you just can't duplicate, right? You
Yeah.
can't duplicate. And it's so funny because and we talked about the sales process.
Yeah.
So this is a sales process where I'm out there and I'm going door to door, knocking on doors. So quickly, I very, very quickly pick out which doors I'm going to knock on. Because I go up to a house and it says, Nan and Pop lives here, and it's got all these ornaments
Yeah.
on the ground, and this is from experience.
Right.
So I'd knock on those doors, and they go, yeah, no, we don't really have any use for that. We got no kids. All our kids are moved
Right.
out.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And that wasn't our target market.
Right.
Because we were looking for people who had young kids who were going through the schooling system. So then I quickly realized that that's not the house to knock on.
In sales
next
jargon, you're qualifying your prospect.
Qualifying the prospect. And I mean, that's very simple in terms of qualifying prospects.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the tender age of 22 or 23 or whatever it was at the time, you know, I understood it.
Yeah.
I
You're
understood.
looking for the bikes in front of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We were looking for the swing sets
Yeah.
and the bikes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
Not we were doing, that's what I was doing.
That's what you were doing.
Everybody else was knocking on every door, and probably the reason I sold more than they sold is because they spent more time wasting their time at Nan and Pop's house when they needed to go next door where the guy had a swing set and bicycles on the lawn.
Because it's Newfoundland, because
Yeah.
Nan and Pop probably invited him in for a cup of tea.
Exactly. Well, everywhere you went, I mean, we went up the Northern Peninsula.
Yeah.
That summer we did the Northern Peninsula, and I tell you, I walked the Northern Peninsula.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
Rocky Harbor, Woody Point, all that stuff.
Well,
You know, on that note, you know, sales is not easy. Let's face it, Richard, it's
No.
not. And you know, it's a lot of work. Like it's not a job. It is work. And anyone who's thinking about sales, it's a career that you really got to dig in. You know, and I'll never forget. I don't know if you were in this course, but a guy came in as a guest speaker to Memorial, one of our classes. Can't remember which one, but he stood up doing a presentation. You know, he's a business person. We're all students, and he goes, "Sales is the engine that drives the economy."
I was in that course.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah,
You and I got
100%.
fired up because,
Yeah,
like,
100%.
I want to be part of that engine.
Yeah.
Now, there was a portion of the students in the class that wanted to be marketing. You want to sit in there and do your marketing thing. You and I, on the
Yeah.
other hand, wanted to be part of the engine, right? Remember that?
Well, yeah, but I did want to be part of the marketing too. I understand what you're saying, but I do remember that because I mean, in sales, when I was coming up through, it was like, you're a salesman, you sell ice to Eskimos.
Right.
And when someone says to me, you can sell ice to Eskimos, that's not me.
Right.
You know why? Because Eskimos don't need ice.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what I am. I'm not a person who can fleece you to buy something that you don't want.
Right.
Never ever went to that school of thought.
Right.
My thing was, how can I help you get what you need?
Yeah.
Not what can I sell you.
Right.
You know, there's a difference.
Okay.
And when it
certainly.
comes down to sales,
Yeah.
I remember when you say about when you worked. Okay, so when I was going to university, and why it took me a little bit longer, because I wanted to go work in an advertising company, so I went to work with Austin Advertising, and they were a sign production company, a pre-press company. They really had no use for me. I walked into their shop and I said, I want to work in advertising. I'm in university. I'm doing a marketing degree, and I want some experience. So, you know, I want to get in at the ground floor. I want to. And Peter Austin at the time was running the. He was owner of the. Him and a couple of partners were owner of it. And I said to Peter, I said, you know, I'll work for nothing. And he goes, I guess somehow he saw that I was ambitious in terms of I wanted to get into this business. And I mean, he wasn't the only call. I went to M5.
Yeah.
I went to Target, Bristol, all those guys, and they were like, "No, man, we don't need you. We don't need you. Get a degree, come back." Anyways, went into this guy, and he goes, "Man, I can see something in you." He said, "I don't have a job for you." He said, "But let me think about it." And he called me back the next day, and he said, "Yeah, I don't have a position, but," he said, "I just decided I'm going to create a position. You're going to run the promotions department." So he hired me. He didn't have a job, and he said, "You know, one thing we don't have is we don't have anyone selling T-shirts, pens, rulers, calculators, all that stuff. You know, the promotional side of that he saw that his clientele he could probably adapt and add to, but he had nobody doing it. And he's like, you take that and do it. Do you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I want to do it. Like, I'll do it."
What did it feel like when he took a chance on you?
It felt really good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now and then, you know, I was in the middle. I was working full time, and I was going to school full time.
I remember.
And I got to a point. Actually, it's a funny story. I don't know if it's a funny story, Alan, but it's a story. Just to answer your question first, what did I think? I was honored that someone actually believed I could do something.
Right.
And to take a chance on me to do that,
Yeah.
honored, 100%.
Right.
So, but, you know, I did it for a few years, probably a year and a half, I think, and I was working full time,
Mhm.
and I was going to school at full time. And I was doing night courses and working in the daytime at this job. And at one point my body said, "Stop."
Yeah.
And I actually had a seizure and ended up in hospital for a weekend.
Go on.
And they couldn't find out anything was wrong with me, but what they figured was it was complete and utter exhaustion.
Right.
And they said, "You got to do something different."
Yeah.
So I had to make a choice between working in the advertising field or in the advertising company that I was in, or finishing my university degree. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet, and I'm going back to university solely and get this degree behind me. And that's what I chose to.
Yeah. You're describing an amazing work ethic. Where did it come from?
It came from, I think, my Kennedy family were the general merchants in Harbor, Maine. And my grandmother and grandfather ran that store, that business, and that's what they did all their life. They ran that business. And when I was very, very young, I can't remember how young I was, but I mean, I have to know what numbers were, I suppose.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 years old, maybe something like that. I'd be tagging Royal towel tissues, and I'd be bagging potatoes in 10-pound sacks and taking out salt meat for clients and going out and getting, you know, I couldn't lift very much, but, you know, I'd go and get the salt that they needed for their salt fish at the time or whatever.
That's
So
your dad's parents.
yeah, they were the general merchants for that, and that is, there's a funny story. So the general merchants, that store opened in 1901, and here I am right now at my 25th year in the real estate game, real estate business, and Friday past I just sold the last asset of that company because the store was shut down. Everybody is pretty much passed on.
Wow.
And that legacy of the P.J. Kennedy Limited in Harbor, Maine is gone, but it's not gone. The really cool thing about it is, guess who bought it?
Ooh.
The town of Harbor, Maine, and they're going to turn it into like this museum, and
Really?
they're going to reimagine that whole site.
Wow.
And they're going to take, and I've after been in with, I was in a few meetings with them when they brought people in, because I had to let them in and we had conversations and stuff. And I tell you, what they're looking at doing in Harbor, Maine is so cool.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, they're looking at green energy. They're looking at, you know, a farmer's market. They're looking at different things. Now they haven't settled on any of it. These are
Right.
all
Yeah,
ideas that
sure,
they're
yeah.
working with within the parameters.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that, you know, I get to finish off the assets of that business or help
120
move.
years later.
Yeah.
Richard, it's not lost on me. You know, your grandparents together started that in 1901.
No, my great grandfather started in 1901, and his son would be my grandfather and his wife, Margaret Kennedy. That'd be Raymond Kennedy, Margaret Kennedy. They ran that for pretty much till they retired.
Which would have been in the 70s, maybe? 80s?
Yep, 70s, 80s.
Think about that business and,
And then-
what
and
they
then-
lived through. Right?
And then on top of that, then my uncle, Dr. Richard Kennedy, my namesake, he was chief surgeon of Janeway, and he didn't want to let that go. So he took over that store and he ran it himself and had other people hired
As
there.
a surgeon. He was a surgeon at the Janeway and had a store going.
He was the chief surgeon. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, now
So where
I,
did the work ethic come from?
you don't need to say any more, Richard. You just described it all.
No, but we never stopped.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we literally never stopped, and I don't know what it was, Alan. Was it out of necessity? Was it out of drive? Or was it just genes?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we just never stopped.
Imagine them going though through First World War, Second World War, the
Yeah.
Depression. Oh my God! I mean, the stuff that must have been thrown at them to try and keep that store
Hold it
going.
together.
The other thing in that store, there used to be these old ledgers. When I was younger, we used to be up in the attic and we'd be thumbing through them, and you'd be looking at Mrs. So and so, and this is all the stuff she charged. So they were carrying
Credit, yeah.
families.
Yeah.
They were carrying families, and when they got some money, they paid it down. Charge a bit more, pay it down.
Unbelievable, eh?
Yeah, and I mean, the prices is nothing
Yeah.
like today.
No.
If you had $20 in some of those ledgers, you'd fill the back of your
There's probably
truck.
still some money owed to your family, eh? Or you could go back and
Probably.
get some of that interest.
There probably is.
I mean, but they were the focal point of the community, right?
Yeah,
As
I'm-
you say, right? I mean, they're supporting families, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
these and that part of my family, you know, is one thing to be general merchants, but I mean they were more than that. They were fish brokers. They had their own schooners.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
they
yeah.
were the merchants. They were the general merchants of the town.
Richard, you just described perfectly an amazing foundation on which you've started your career. I mean, unbelievable. Where are you now? What are you doing in the moment?
Ooh, got a lot of stuff on the go today, actually. Well, like I said, when I came in and I opened up, you asked me who I was, what I did. I'm currently the broker of what is 67 agents in Hanlon Realty, and Wayne Hanlon is the owner, operator. I'm the broker for the company. We work together to, you know, keep everything moving along into, well, I pretty much handle the agent side, Wayne handles the business side. So it's his business, you know, but I am the broker and I'm responsible for 67 people out there writing deals and making sure that they're writing deals properly. Make sure there's no issues, and when there's issues arise, then I gotta step in and try to help them solve it.
Right.
That's one place I am. There's another place where I come from a background, when I came out of university, I went into the construction business. And not as a real estate agent, I went in as sales and marketing degree out of university. I get hired by Elmo Russell of Urco Homes, who's probably best known as a lot of developments he did around town, but he's the dream home builder, has built, I think, all of the dream homes. You've videotaped many.
I have, yeah.
So Urco Developments, Elmo Russell, Kathy Russell, and came out of university, I worked with those guys, then, you know, moved on to.
That was incredible learning ground there.
Oh my God, that was, you talk about work, it was unbelievable. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, like full on.
Two amazing entrepreneurs.
Oh
You
yeah,
talk about
very
luck.
smart.
You were lucky in some ways to end up working with them, but you also worked hard for them, right?
I worked hard with them actually, because I felt like I was working with them. They were all inclusive when I started out, and I liked that. I liked the fact that, you know, it wasn't like do this, do that. They respected what I had to say. They took it under advisement, and they followed some. They didn't follow some of the other stuff, or took, you know, we decided we're going to go this way or that way. But I tell you, one of the things that was so fantastic of working that first job in that construction, and I went on. I worked with Pennycon, and I worked with multiple Clark's, yes. Fairview Investments, probably one of the biggest contracts, and I did work with Newfoundland Labrador Housing.
Clark's built the house we're in right now, Garland Clark. But anyway, yeah.
Fairview Investments, great company, fantastic company actually. Spent many years working with those guys. But just to go back to my first experience, creativity is I think one of my strongest points. I'm a very creative person, and working with Elmo and Kathy, it wasn't so much Kathy at the time, because Kathy actually went on maternity leave when I started working. She did come back next year, but first when I got out of university, I was working with Elmo, and we were always like, how do we get more people in houses? Like, what can we do? You know, what's our ad campaign? What can we say to people? How can we get people to call us? How can we help people get in houses? What can we do? And we did. I'll give you an example of where we went. This is early days. This is before a real estate career. So we did a guaranteed rental income. So people would always say to me, because we look at where's the problems, like what's happening in the marketplace. I say, well, you know, we're selling 2 apartment homes, and we're saying that your mortgage payment is, say, $1,200, and you can rent the apartment for $600, so it only costs you $600 to live here. Mm-hmm. So the clients come in and say, yeah, I understand, like, it's only going to cost me $600 to live in this, the way your numbers work, but what about I can't rent the apartment? Like, I'm really concerned. Like, I don't want to be over a barrel because I can't get the apartment rented. So we just think about it. We say, okay, well, how about we do this? How about we give you a guaranteed 1-year rental? If you don't rent that apartment at any month, from the time you move in till 12 months later, we'll pay the rent.
Go on.
Would that help you? And these are obstacles that would stop people from purchasing.
Yeah.
And we were like, how do we find ways to get over this?
Right.
And then it was like, oh, the interest rates are going up. So we'd say, okay, well, why don't we buy down the interest rate? Well, actually, Elmo came up with that. He said, we'll buy the interest rate down. So everybody else is selling their houses at $1,100 a month. We're going to buy it down, and there's a process, and it was legal to do.
Yeah.
We buy the interest rate down, and the people, instead of paying 7% interest, they'd be paying like 6 or something like that. And, and we'd
make it easy for them.
We'd fund the difference, and we'd be using it from our marketing monies.
Yeah.
So we'd be moving our marketing monies to help get people into houses. And they were like, well, we can't really afford all the down payment to get into a house. Well, we have this new program. What's the new program? It's called Sweat Equity. Did you ever hear tell of Sweat Equity?
Mm-hmm.
Well, back in the 90s, 93, 94, we were running Sweat Equity programs. They said, hey, you know, you need 5% to get into this house. It was like $100 and change, the house was, so
Yeah.
$6,000 to get in. So, well, instead of paying our painters to paint this house, how about we pay you guys $2,000? So now you only need $4,000.
Right.
So, we're always looking at new ways to move people into houses. And one of the things that I'm so grateful with on that first job is the fact that I was introduced to R2000. And I always say, you got to be selling value, right? There's got to be a value position.
Yeah.
So, are you familiar with R2000?
I am, yeah.
Tell me what R2000 is.
It was an energy efficient home, right? From keep all the energy inside, is that the drill?
That's one.
Yeah.
So, there's 3 legs of R2000. There's keep the energy in, keep the heat in, make
Yeah.
it lower the heat. There's air quality, which is very important because when we were going into these new building sciences, the building science of building a house, our whole objective was to make it as airtight as possible. So it wasn't like your grandmother's house where the wind would just pass right through it, So we make them as airtight as we could, and when we make the house airtight, air couldn't exchange. So if you didn't have air moving in and out, you'd have stale air inside.
Right.
So an air exchange process, which in R2000 was heat recovery. So not only are you taking out some heat, taking out the air, but you're trying to recapture some of the heat from the air when you're pumping it back in.
Yeah.
And that whole process of, making it more energy efficient, yet trying to save more money and recapture heat. But there's a third leg. You know what the third leg is? Save the planet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save the planet. And you look at right now. You
This
look
is
at
20
now.
years ago you're talking about.
You look at now. Like, what is the number one thing in the news?
Yeah.
Climate
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Climate change. So this is all about. We were like, we're selling product, but I believed and still believe in the process of that energy efficiency, that air quality, clean air to live inside, and recycled materials save the planet. But you know what the energy part of it was? It was all about reducing the emissions that house would create.
Right.
17% of all Canadian households today represent the emissions of carbon in the air.
Wow.
The carbon footprint, 17% of Canadian homes come from that. So you look at, that's where I came from. So you just take where I came from in that mentality and that value proposition
Yeah.
for that type of house, and then move into the real estate world, and you go, there's listing and selling houses, but construction was really, I was a duck in water in construction because I knew it. I was trained in it. I knew it. And then, and not only did I know it, the innovations in the technologies that were coming out. I mean, we were just grabbing onto it. We're like, we love this, these new products that are being pumped out, the new ways of doing things, the new techniques of building, and we moved into R2000. And later on, you want to push it right on down the line. Say, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, they revamped R2000 and they moved into an EnerGuide or an energy stamp. You know the way you go, you buy your washer and it's got an energy code.
Stamp, yeah.
Well, they want to do that with EnerGuide ratings for houses, so that's what they ended up doing. So if you could make your house more energy efficient, it's going to reduce the carbon footprint. But there's also a plus side of that. Carbon footprint, fantastic. But from the consumer's point of view, what are you getting? It's costing you less money
Right.
to run a house.
Right.
And then you look at new technologies, or not like the heat pumps, the mini heat pump systems. I'll give you an example. The mini heat pump systems is not that new of a technology. It's been around a while, but the technology has gotten better and better and better to be useful in our climates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And right now, the statistic is if you were spending $1 on a heater, electric heater, your $1 of heat will get you $1. You spend $1 electricity on a heat pump, it gets you $3.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
3 times more efficient. These are the things
Yeah.
But
that.
it's, it comes back to value, Alan.
Oh,
It's
yeah, the way
it's
you
one
define-
thing to
yeah.
sell,
Yeah.
but it's another thing to provide value as you talk to people. And obviously, you've got that in spades.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always looked at it if someone said, "Well, we want granite countertops," and well, you can put your granite countertops in. It's going to cost you X number of dollars, and sure, your house will look good. But if I were you, probably what I'd do is I'd say, forget the granite countertops, especially if you're, on a budget and you're trying to get into a house. Instead of putting that granite countertop in, why don't we do this? Why don't we, add energy efficiencies to your house? And when we add energy efficiencies to your house, what's going to happen is your heat bill, instead of being $400 a month on average, is going to be $300 or $350.
Yeah.
So every month, you're going to get $50 back from the decision that you're going to make today for the rest of your life.
That's what I like about that savings. It's one thing to save money
Yeah.
for a month, saving money for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's money in the bank.
And,
Right.
when I'm dealing with my clients, it's not that I make up their mind or anything like that. My job is not to make up your mind. My job is, as a realtor, as a person who's a consultant in whether I'm selling a house or helping someone buy a house, my job is to put the information out there.
Right.
Give you the right information, and
Yeah.
you have to decide what I want to do.
Right.
My job is not to say do this, do that.
Yeah.
But, from a reasonable point of view, if I said to you, Alan, for the next 20 years, I'm going to save you $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's $20,000.
Yeah.
That I can save by doing nothing, only making a little change.
Right. Yeah.
These are the things that
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's incredible. And the way you just articulated the whole value proposition was brilliant.
It's
So, I mean, so you're in the construction with the homes, and then you're in the real estate business. How many homes do you think that you've been involved in?
What a question. Good
In
question.
purchasing that you're selling and over your years.
Well, I'm 25 years in the business, and I actually did count them,
Yeah,
but I stopped counting about 15 years ago.
right.
But I was, in terms of real estate transactions, I remember one of my sales managers, Shane Bruce, when I went to work
Yeah.
with the company, Shane always used to say to me, he said, man, you're like leagues ahead, like you got so many years experience. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've only been in the business three years. And he goes, yeah, but you don't understand. He said, what do you mean? He goes, let me show you. He goes, so he calculates out, he says, the average agent sells 12 houses a year. I'm like, yeah. He said, man, you're actually selling like 250 houses in the last 3 years. Like, divide that by 12. That's how many years, of experience comparable
Right.
to your colleagues that you're in. And I'm like, man, I'm not even sure I'm a believer of that philosophy.
Right.
But he said, the business, and it does make sense. The more transactions you do, the more you understand what you're doing.
Right.
Right.
So if I did one transaction a year, if I did another transaction next year, I probably wouldn't,
Right.
I wouldn't have the same experience as doing 50 transactions in a year,
Yeah.
or 60 or 70.
It must be an amazing feeling to put people in a home when they're trying to get to it, and whether particularly young couples or maybe even new Canadians come in.
All
right?
people.
All the people, right?
Mhm.
It
And
must
it's,
be an
it's
amazing.
interesting, Alan, what you say, putting people in a home. It's a home.
Yeah, it's a
It's
home.
not a
'Cause
house.
You're right. Yeah,
It's a home.
it's a different type of transaction, isn't it? The value you're giving them is their home. It must be amazing. You must have so many stories
I
about
do.
that.
Well, when you think about, you lived through the pandemic and the challenges there, shelter and food.
Oh, Maslow's hierarchy, I always say food and shelter, man. That's where you start.
Yeah.
So the house is important, and that's one of my core beliefs. As a person, I truly believe that a person has a right for a place to live in safety and comfort.
Yeah.
It's a human right,
Yeah.
in my opinion, and we've done things to try and get as many people in homes as we could, beneficial to the client. If
Yeah.
somebody came to me and said, hey man, I'm gonna buy this house and I want you to sell me this house, and I look at where they are, what they're doing, I go, man, this is probably not the right fit for you. You can do it if you want to do it,
Yeah.
but that's probably too high of a price point for you to be starting at, given your position and what you're telling me about,
Yeah.
what's going to happen in the future. The guy says, I'm not sure I'm going to have my job next year and I want to buy this $500,000 house. I think you should do it right now. I was like, that's probably not a really good thing for you to be thinking about. Just, you should look
Yeah.
at it in a
You almost
different...
become a counselor in many ways.
A consultant.
You're a
Consultant,
consultant, yeah,
yeah.
you're a consultant.
I always say we're consultants.
Yeah.
In the real estate business. That's your job. Your job is to consult. You're to provide the information
Yeah.
for the people and let the people make up their own minds.
give them the best information to make the best decision, right?
Yeah, there's no two ways about it.
But I mean, it must be an amazing feeling though to walk away from a transaction, if we call it that. I guess it doesn't seem like enough, but walk away from a transaction knowing that that's a great young family in there. They're going to have a great life right there.
I tell
I'll
you-
run into them later on.
Yeah, I tell you where my headspace is on transactions.
Yeah,
And all of my agents and all the stuff and all the training, and we always talk about the inches, and you know,
Yeah.
you do all the inches to make the experience so much better. And I did a few years back, life changing. I did a course, not a course, I suppose, it was a workshop with Jim Barnes from Jim Barnes.
I remember you talking about it.
Jim Barnes wrote probably most of the marketing books in university when we were going through, or had a hand
Local
in,
guy,
in-
local
or
St. John's
have
guy.
or have a hand in writing most of the marketing books. And he did this 5 day. It was 5 days, 8 hours a day, workshop on impressive customer service. And I walked in and I was like, it clicked with me so well, you know, because it's like I started to understand I understood what I was doing, but he made it even better by saying, you know what? It's not all about your logo. It's not about having your logo in everybody's face all the time. It's about the impressive customer experience. So Alan, you go, or Jerry, you go to a restaurant, you order your food, you expect your food to come out warm, you expect, you know, your dinner to be great. You know, you start getting complaints when your steak comes out wrong,
Yeah.
you know, or like my wife, she always, if there was a meal that comes out, it's always hers that's, you know,
Right, yeah,
fouled up, not mine.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's, there's, in sales, service is expected, but there's a difference between service and impressive customer service. And in the food industry, for argument's sake, I like to talk about food because I turned myself into a little mini chef over the years.
You're talking to someone who is a chef.
Well, I like that, and you know, the creative process.
Yeah,
I told
yeah.
you about the creative process, and I really like
yeah,
cooking food because it's creative.
yeah,
I like writing songs because it's creative. But you know, when you're in a restaurant and they come out, and I'm sure you've done it because you've traveled the world,
yeah,
and they come out and say, the chef has prepared this for you. You didn't order it. You weren't expecting it,
yeah,
but it showed up, and you were like, oh, really? They
Yeah.
prepared this for me, and you taste it, you go, oh, that's really good. You know, that's an example of an impressive customer service. And I remember this one case that we were looking at in this course I was doing, and it was like in real estate. I mean, just think about it in real estate.
yeah,
Everything is logo.
Yeah.
You know, your logo, we have logos printed on our face masks
Right.
now, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you take anything and anything that can carry your logo, it
Yeah.
got a logo on it.
yeah,
So this is very impressive in terms of an example. So this company was making custom furniture. So they'd like make it, draw have the letter made and sewn and custom make all this high-end furniture. And Jim was telling the story. And he said, you know, when you finish this, you have all this leftover leather. So maybe what you should do is make coasters. And the guy goes, yeah, we'll do coasters and we'll put our logo on it. And he goes, no, man.
yeah,
No, just think about it. He said, if you take your coaster and put your logo on it, chances are they're probably not going to want it in their living room. It's going to go in a drawer,
Yeah.
go somewhere else. But if you made coasters out of the same leather that they were doing that couch out of, and when your guys delivered that couch, cleaned up all their stuff and left there, and they had a little thing there and said, by the way, there was leather left over, so we made some coasters for your table to leave by. No logo, no nothing.
exactly,
That's impressive,
right,
right? And that's the thing, and I guess one of the things I took from that course and been implementing it from the day I walked out of there is if there's an opportunity for you as a salesperson, as a consultant, to say, that's okay, Mr. Customer, I'll take care of that. If you can say, I'll take care of that, that's impressive. Because it gives them less and less to do and puts more on you. So going back to, you know, how does it feel when we do a transaction? I tell you what I want to hear when I leave a transaction. I want to hear, Richard, I can't believe we could have got through this without you.
Yeah.
Like, we needed you so, we didn't even know we needed you, but we needed you so bad, and I can't believe, we were thinking about doing this without you. Some nice to have you on our side. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's where I am
Yeah.
in my career, I guess.
I love the coaster story, Richard. I mean, you know what I always loved about you? You'd always find these little stories, and when, we periodically get together over coffee, and he'd throw these stories at me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
then I'd run out and try to be the best customer service person
It's
in my sales
motivational.
career.
It's very motivational, right?
It is, and
Yeah.
part of that is sharing. We've shared over the years a lot of shared experience.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about before about the Al Pacino video. The guys used to come up to me and they say, why are you so successful? And I never could answer it.
Yeah.
I could never answer the question. I mean, I could bluff my way through and say, well, I know this and I know that, and I grew up in new home construction, and because I have new home construction experience, I know resale houses, and I know what to look for when I'm work with buyers, and I know how to talk and deal with people, and I'm used to contracts because I did that long before I was in real estate. And but that wasn't really the answer. The answer was, why were we good at what we did? Because I don't believe I was successful. I never ever once believed I was successful. I believed I was good at what I did. But I never, and to this day, I don't consider myself successful. My success is on a journey. I'm still moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're working on stuff now that is just it's everything that we grew up with, everything that we've used, everything that we've had in our past is accumulating into new projects, new places to go. And so success, it wasn't about any of that. It was about inches. It was all about the doing the little bit, the little bit, the little bit more, the little bit more. And myself and my wife, we currently own a big chunk of land, 26 acres, and we're in the process now of taking our universal design experience, our new home construction energy efficiency, and we're looking at doing a universal design community, like building it ourselves.
Richard, you've talked about your wife a little bit, but she is certainly a big supporter of you. And Alan and I talk about, our
Often,
wives,
yeah.
and Susan is something else.
Huge supporter.
She's a organized woman. Some of the challenges in sales.
She's the. Hang on there, Richard. Let's pull you back for a second.
Pull him back.
Is she in the business?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's that's a little bit. How did she got into business? It was she worked at a company. She was managing 12 stores, 12 hair salons, and their company went bankrupt for various reasons. I always say my wife took the position, she put him bankrupt, but that's not true.
Yeah, she loves that.
That's not true at all. No, she worked in that position for many years, but she was, for the first time in her life, she found she wasn't working, and she had been working from the time she was 14 years old in a pharmacy, all coming up through, and she worked. She's a worker.
Yeah.
Anyways, my real estate career was like going. It was busy.
Yeah.
It was busy. And I go, Susan, you need to get a real estate license because I need you to pick up some slack. I need you to pick up some of the stuff that I'm dropping. Because I'm telling you right now that if you're a great salesperson, you're a horrible paper person.
Yeah.
Right.
Would that not be a fair
That's pretty
statement?
good,
We chat about that over lunch.
We chatted already about that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's very rarely do you find a very good salesperson
Yeah.
or a person who can,
Yeah.
know their craft and be very good at paperwork.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now, I hate paperwork.
yeah.
Always hated paperwork. And she comes in behind. She's, she has a real estate license. She has shown houses, but that was not her primary role. Her primary role was to process.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't process in Newfoundland. Like, you can't even talk to clients about real estate unless you have a real estate license. So
Right.
she has a real estate license. She has the ability to sell. She sold stuff in the past, but that wasn't the role that she came in our business. They call it our business now because it is our business.
She
Yeah.
really compliments you well.
She does.
Yeah.
Probably not only in business.
No, well, it's so funny, we talk about cooking, right? And I mean, I actually, I love cooking, and I'd never want to be a chef. Were you a chef?
Yep.
Okay, I'd never want to be a chef.
Yeah,
And the reason I'd never want to be a chef is because I'd never want to be a chef.
Yeah.
I don't want that. But I love being able to get in and do a creative process on food. And
right.
we do a bunch of stuff friends.
Yeah.
And one of our, I guess, there's 5 couples that we did this year, and we go from country home to country home, basically. I guess it's all up in the country. And there's one day we take, and everybody picks a country and does one app and one drink.
Right.
And nobody knows what anyone else is doing, and we go from house to house.
Nice.
And, you know, everybody does an outstanding job. But we always look forward to that because it's very social and
Right.
it's very creative.
Well, every time you break bread, right, it's
Yeah.
social, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big part, and the creativity falls right in there. So you kind of leaked out a little bit what's over the horizon for you. What is over the horizon? Where do you see yourself?
What I'd like to finish off is I'd like to finish off what I started I started the energy efficient, and I mean, I care about the planet. You know, am I going to change it myself? No, I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
It's not, I can't go out and make climate, the climate crisis go away, but I do feel that if every one of us did a little tiny part, it would, because it's those inches, you know?
Yep.
If you did a little bit, I did a little bit, you
Yep.
did a little bit, it's gotta add up to something someday. So
Yeah.
we look at, climate change is one thing, but then, you know, I look at demographics, and you look at the way, the baby boom generation has impacted every single market as they were coming up through. Well, baby boom is what, between 47 and 64, I think it is?
65, I think, somewhere
65,
around there, yeah.
So if you look at the age of those people now, the age of those baby boomers are 57 to 75,
Yeah.
right? And that's impacting housing, again,
Yeah.
because they're getting older. And if you look at the population chart in Newfoundland, and I went looking for it on Google. I didn't have my encyclopedias to go to. But I went looking for it on Google. The Newfoundland population broke down from 0 to 5, 6 to 10, right on through, and I
Yeah.
couldn't find it. So I actually went to Stats Canada, and I pulled out all the numbers, and then I created my own chart from the numbers to have a visual myself of where we are. And 50% of our population is over the age of 55. 50% of our population.
Yeah.
So if you look at what does that mean from a consultant real estate person, this is where energy efficiency comes in, because these people are more or less on more fixed incomes.
Right.
Their incomes, their
Yeah.
children are gone, sure, most of them. And now they're on fixed incomes, and, you know, saving money is more important than ever before. But then I look at living in the house. And I've done a lot of research, a lot of training on universal design. And universal design, a lot of people say, well, you're talking about a wheelchair house. No, we're not. We're not talking about a wheelchair house. And it's so funny because it has 3-foot doors and a wheelchair can go into it. And, you know, it's
Yeah.
designed in such a way, and I won't get into all of universal design, but universal design is designed for people to comfortably live in their homes. And that's all we've been doing since I started in this business.
Right.
How do we find new ways for people to live comfortably in their homes? So this is another process. So where are we going? Myself and
Is
my-
this to stay in their homes longer? Is that what you
Oh,
mean?
for life.
For life,
For
okay.
life, yeah.
Right.
For life.
And of course, that has a great impact on the healthcare system and everything.
So
And
are you
people-
talking about existing homes and retrofitting them, or
You
newer
can,
homes?
you can do that. You can do retrofits on existing homes, but what we're looking at, and you say, where are you going?
Yeah.
We're talking about a universal design. So I just go back one step first.
Sure.
So universal design, people say, well, I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't need a wheelchair house. First of all, it's not a wheelchair house.
Yeah.
It's a universal design, which means anybody can enjoy it. So this was actually spoken to me by, or the reason I got really tuned into universal design was my uncle. And my uncle had he had a stroke a number of years ago. And I used to say to him, I say, why don't you come into my place? Come over to my place. Come over to my place. And he's like, no thanks, no thanks. Anyways, one day he said to me, he said, no. And he's in a wheelchair. He is in
Yeah.
a wheelchair. He said, I'd love to come to your place. He said, but unfortunately I can't come to your place. I said, why not? You've done my place. He said, if I go to your place and I gotta use the washroom, you don't have accessible washroom and I can't use the washroom. So unfortunately, Richard, I can't come.
Wow.
Like, cause I will probably need, in the 4 hours I come, I'll need to use the washroom. And I go, man, and the light goes off in my head.
Yeah.
And I go, holy God, I never thought about that. So then you just think about people
Yeah.
who are 40, 50 plus. They don't need a wheelchair house. But hey, if mom and dad are gonna come over and say, mom's got a cane or got a mobility issue, or dad is in a wheelchair, and they wanna come to your place for Christmas dinner, man, if they can't get into your house,
Yeah.
they can't use your facilities, you're not having Christmas dinner at your house,
Exactly.
right? You're not having
never
functions at
even
your
thought of it
house where
that
they're
way.
coming. So, and that was a light that went off in my
Yeah.
head. And I went, man, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's not, and that's the thing about the universal design. I mean, we spoke earlier about, me teaching agents and training agents. Well, I designed a construction buyer agent course, like teaching agents what it meant to be involved in the construction of a house.
Right.
And what your role should be. And part of that morphed into a universal design portion of, because this course that I designed was 30 hours long, and there was in field, and we used to we'd go to houses, and I'd show them things in the house
Right.
of, this is what you need to be looking for, and this is the stuff you can and can't do, or you shouldn't be doing. So I mean, there was a lot of on-site stuff along with 30 hours of training. And then part of that was universal design, which we incorporated in. And then I wanted, because I was like, it's important, like all real estate agents should know this. So I went to our real estate board, because we had to do courses, and they actually sanctioned my course. I submitted it, they sanctioned it, and like most of the courses, you do 2 hours and you get 1 credit.
Right.
So it's 2 hours training, you get 1 credit. So I give them the course, and they said, well, this thing is like this big, right?
Yeah.
They say, well, how long does this take, Richard? I said, it's 30 hours in class.
Yeah.
There's 30 hours in class, and then there's probably another, say, 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours on site. And they go, that's like 40 hours. We can't give you, 20 credits, because all of the real estate
Yeah.
agents only need 12 credits. He said, I said, I don't care about the credits, man. Like, anybody who's interested in being a real estate agent and being interested in knowing their craft
Yeah.
needs to know this.
Right.
So you give them 1 credit. He said, we'll give you 2 credits. I said, perfect.
Yeah.
He said, but nobody's going to take your course. It's like 40 hours. I ran that course, man, full.
Good for
Really?
you.
People want to learn,
Yeah.
You want to learn.
right?
I think you're right. You do. Richard, we're at the stage where, I think we need to find out about the advice you have for others, that one piece.
Yeah,
you know?
we always ask our guests to leave the audience with one small thing.
And it's
You're
a tough
guy
question to
that's
ask.
You're a
but-
guy that's had a really interesting journey and come from pretty humble beginnings. You've seen a lot of stuff. You've leaned into a lot of stuff. What would that be? What would that piece of advice be?
I think it's somewhat easy, actually. Because I look at what my core value is, and if I could give you a piece of advice, why don't you go do something nice for somebody else that has nothing in it for you, and see how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
If you give, you know how they say giving is better than receiving?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
100%.
Man, I tell you what, if you did something nice for somebody, that's an inch,
Yeah,
right? That'll be your inch today. And if they did something for somebody nice, that'll be their inch. So if everybody did a little bit of nice for a little bit of everybody, what would that have after you got to 4 million nices?
right, exactly.
It would be life changing. You can impact and change people's lives by just being nice.
You sure can. Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you know what, Richard, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. You've reached the pinnacle of real estate sales for many years, but it's obvious that you're bringing value to the table, and I think I reflect on our relationship over the last 30 years, and the fact that our dads died when we were young, but hard work. You're a product of hard work. And sales, as I said, it's not a job, it's work. And ultimately, those points you've made throughout this hour together has expressed that. And I'm glad that we have this, format to be able to showcase what it is you've been doing for 30 years. And
Well,
you helped me from the very beginning.
well, you're welcome. But I'd like to say also that I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because you guys are doing some great work. And you know what? More needs to be said about the good stuff, the innovation, and the way people are changing other people's lives. So good on you.
Thank you.
Well, another amazing conversation on gale force winds. I don't think I've ever met somebody who gained so much perspective at such an early age and taken that perspective throughout your professional journey. It's incredible. Your level of resourcefulness, your creativity that you picked up when you were young, and then you were able to pepper through and continue to pepper through your journey. It's unbelievable. I love your story about somebody taking a chance on you, and there's no doubt in my mind that you take a chance on a lot of people too. Your work ethic is incredible. Your understanding of being inclusive and getting everybody into the conversation it's unbelievable. The whole conversation, Richard, was quite motivational to me, inspirational. I can't begin to tell you. I always like to leave the audience with my own small piece of advice, and I, bottom of my heart, I mean it. The world needs more guys like Richard Kennedy around, so thanks very much.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, sir.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.